今こそ2000。
Last week, Koei Tecmo suddenly dropped their latest title, Samurai Warriors 4 DX, on Steam. And while this is definitely a pleasant surprise, I was admittedly a little bit confused to see this game re-released about a decade later, especially since the franchise seemed to have moved on to its next numbered title back in 2021. So what is actually included in Samurai Warriors 4 DX? Is it a remaster? Is it a combination of Samurai Warriors 4 and 4-2? These are just some of the questions that came to mind when trying to decide if this game is worth its $50 price tag. So in today's video, I wanted to share my thoughts on the new Samurai Warriors 4 DX release, and determine if this entry is really worth your money. Really quickly before we dive in, I'd like to thank the mighty warriors who have joined Craig's army. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, I'll leave a link below in this video's description. Now, I'm going to assume that the majority of you watching this video would already be familiar with the Dynasty Warriors series at least, or would know what a Musou game is. But for those of you who haven't picked up a Musou title before, put simply, they belong to the hack-and-slash gaming genre, where you can choose a character and take them onto a large-scale battlefield and fight against a whole army of soldiers. This combat and gameplay style is commonly referred to as 1 versus 1,000 combat, based on the sheer number of enemies you'll be mowing down. You basically feel like a god throughout the whole game. Usually a little campy and over the top with a lot of heart and stylized gameplay, there's a little something for everyone in the Musou Warriors games. When it comes to Samurai Warriors 4, this game is no exception. Upon its original release in 2014, no other Musou game had come remotely close to feeling this smooth, polished, and refined. To this day, I genuinely think this is one of the best-looking Warriors games released, and it really showcases just how great a Warriors game can look and feel when it's made with love and care. But anyway, enough of the original 2014 release. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of what's included in this year's Samurai Warriors 4 DX. Well, for a start, I'm assuming the DX stands for Deluxe, and rightfully so, as it appears this edition of the game comes with all of Samurai Warriors 4's downloadable content. This includes weapons, alternative costumes, and unique battle scenarios that weren't seen in the original vanilla title. But just to clarify for a moment, this doesn't include any of the content or scenarios that were introduced in Samurai Warriors 4-2. As this is a re-release of the original Samurai Warriors 4, unfortunately, Samurai Warriors 4-2 was left behind, which means that now Masa E won't be showing up here as a playable character. Other than that, the typical Warriors experience of playing through the story and free modes can be expected here in Samurai Warriors 4 DX. In fact, those of you who have played the original vanilla installment won't actually find too much of a difference with this new release. The original 55 playable characters we all know and love are still here, along with Chronicle mode, where you can play through a story mode of sorts with your own custom-created character. Speaking of familiarities, the graphics and visual presentation of Samurai Warriors 4 DX is more or less the same as well, with a capped frame rate of 60 FPS during gameplay. With that being said, if there really isn't all that much new that's included in this release, besides the inclusion of all the downloadable content of course, why are we seeing this release at all? Well, over the past few years, it hasn't been too uncommon for companies to re-release an older title as a next-gen port, or to make it available for a different platform such as the PC. In some instances, this could be in the form of a technical remaster. The PlayStation 5 remaster of The Last of Us Part 1 comes to mind as an example. In other instances, some games are more or less ported out or re-released on another platform, resulting in a very similar overall experience to the original game. Koei Tecmo aren't exactly strangers to the latter style of release, usually opting in for bundling together all or most of the DLC for a title, and re-releasing the game as some form of a deluxe edition. As an example, just under 2 years ago, the definitive edition of Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate was released for Steam, in a very similar fashion as the Samurai Warriors 4 DX release. I do have my personal opinions on this practice, however I'll save them for my concluding thoughts and verdict at the end of this video. So now that we covered what's included in the game and what's not, let's start talking about the pricing. As mentioned up top, Samurai Warriors 4 DX has a $50 price tag, which covers the core original Samurai Warriors 4 game, along with all downloadable content. For comparison's sake, I recently revisited the PlayStation Store to calculate the prices of Samurai Warriors 4 and all of its DLC. I'm sure there are the occasional sales. However, at the time of recording this video, Samurai Warriors 4 was priced at $60. On top of that, as you can see, this game also had a lot of add-on packs. In the end, I added up all of the individual DLC packs and then the DLC sets, which combined all of the individual DLC packs together. So the cost of all of the individual add-on packs ended up being just shy of $125 in total, and the DLC sets, on the other hand, added up to roughly $107. Either way, the original 2014 release of Samurai Warriors 4 with all of its DLC included is currently priced between $167 to $185. When you look at that price, objectively speaking, a $50 price point for Samurai Warriors 4 DX seems to be a lot more reasonable. But with that being said, I don't think it's reasonable at all that the original Samurai Warriors 4 and its DLC is the price that it still is a whole decade later. And considering that there doesn't seem to be too many changes made in the newly released Samurai Warriors 4 DX, I'm personally of the belief that asking $50 for a 10-year-old title is a little steep, let alone the price that the original PlayStation 4 counterpart is on offer for. I think if this title was released somewhere within the pricing range of $30 to $40, this game would be a lot more appealing to myself personally, especially considering this is technically a 10-year-old last-gen game. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all of this comes down to the important question: is Samurai Warriors 4 DX worth it? Well, in short, kinda, I guess. I think this re-release caters to a few specific parties here. If you are someone who predominantly spends your time with PC gaming and have never really touched a Warriors game before, I think this is one of the best Musou Warriors games released to date, and I can think of no other better entry point than Samurai Warriors 4. I have nothing but compliments for the vibrant and colorful visual feast that's on offer. And despite being a last-gen game at its core, there's something about this stylistic art direction and overall design of the game that makes it still look so gorgeous. The gameplay is incredibly smooth, and there's no doubt you'll be sinking countless hours across Samurai Warriors 4's engaging stories and breathtaking battlefields. I also think that if you're a longtime fan of the series and haven't yet played Samurai Warriors 4, then I would definitely recommend opting in for Samurai Warriors 4 DX, as it is objectively the version of Samurai Warriors 4 with the most value on offer at the moment. Other than those scenarios, however, I'm not so sure I can recommend purchasing a copy of this game for its current price tag, as I personally believe it is more fairly valued at a sale price range of $30 to $40. But anyway, to conclude this initial impressions video, I just wanted to share a few of my personal thoughts and feelings on this release. And in all honesty, it's not even so much about the Samurai Warriors 4 DX title itself, but more so the company that's releasing it. While I was very surprised to see this game shadow dropped on Steam last week, I'm not surprised at all that we're seeing a re-release of an older, much more well-received Musou title, rather than a complete remaster, or even just a brand new game. If I'm to speak broadly here, I would assume that the majority of the Warriors fanbase really enjoyed Dynasty Warriors 8, Samurai Warriors 4, and Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate. At least to me, they seem to be critically acclaimed. So it's really a win-win for Koei Tecmo if they kept re-releasing these titles on newer platforms. Not only do they get to keep their existing die-hard audience satisfied by re-releasing a trip down memory lane, but they also get to attract new players to the franchise with arguably some of the best games they've released years ago. To any unsuspecting newcomers, they might not realize that they are in fact playing a re-release rather than something actually new. Not that there's anything wrong with this by any means, but to echo my thoughts from my "I miss the old Dynasty Warriors" video, I just wish more focus and energy was placed into making a new and solid Warriors title. Maybe it's just the cynic in me. I would absolutely love to be completely optimistic with these games. And of course, I will never know the intentions of the game developers, as I'm just a dude on the internet. But to me, I just can't help but view this release as a bit of a cash grab. I've seen online that this release is meant to coincide with the celebration of 20 years of the Samurai Warriors franchise, which hey, that's absolutely something worth celebrating. But the thing is, Samurai Warriors 4 was initially released in 2014 in celebration of the 10-year anniversary of the franchise. Following this, Samurai Warriors 4 DX was actually released exclusively in Japan for the PS4 and Nintendo Switch back in 2019, as a celebration of the 15th anniversary of the Samurai Warriors franchise. So not only has Koei Tecmo re-released Samurai Warriors 4 back in 2019, but they have re-released it yet again to the rest of the world only last week. The same game has been heralded as an anniversary celebratory game, on 3 different occasions spanning a decade. Thinking about this is just a little frustrating, especially when you take a look at the 20-year timeline that spans across the Samurai Warriors franchise. In the first 10 years, Samurai Warriors 1, 2, 3, and 4 were released, including any major expansions or Empire spin-offs. In the last 10 years, however, we've only received Samurai Warriors 5 and re-releases of 4, plus a few spin-off titles such as SOS 4-2 and Empires. I know that there's alternative Samurai titles too, such as Chronicles, but I'm mainly just referencing the core console games. Either way, I just personally feel like I would be way more on board with the release of Samurai Warriors 4 DX, had this last decade of Samurai Warriors games gone a little differently. But alas, we can't change the past, but we can stay hopeful for this series' future. And while this re-release isn't what I'm personally looking for from a new Warriors game, I can certainly appreciate and hope that there are many of you that will get countless hours of enjoyment from this release. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game. Have you played it, or are you considering buying it? Let me know your thoughts down below, and until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day.